Good evening, everybody. Let me turn off my phone here. It's good to be with you tonight. It is Thursday, April 27th, 2023, day 17 of the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. I hope you had a good day. It was a lot of testimony today. 8 witnesses were on the stand, including one we've heard from before. The prosecutor called him back up to say a few things, and it was pretty interesting. We heard about fingerprints and a palm print that were positively identified to Alex Cox from the crime scene at Chad Daybell's house. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about bone damage. A lot of talk today about bone damage and more. I hope that it doesn't get to the point where we're just talking about these things just kind of in passing, because, you know, these are human bodies, humans that we're talking about. And so, it was hard to comprehend and understand what had happened to these kids. So we'll talk about that. Also, Tammy Daybell's sister, Samantha Gowilliam, took the stand. Apparently I've been saying it wrong, and I feel bad about that. She took the stand at the very end of the day. We had about 10 minutes left in court, and they called her, and so her testimony will continue over into tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a short day, 8:30 to 1:30. Normally we go until 3:30, but they're going to compact some stuff in. We're not going to have a lunch. And then the next week will begin the following week. Let's see, that'll be week 4, I believe, or 5. Week 5 if you include jury selection. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. Thank you for being here again. Please let me know where you're watching from and what questions you have, because we'll try to get to as many of those as you can. I got to start with I've been taking a lot of heat today for something I posted on my Facebook page, and I have to show you. And apparently it's very controversial, and so I want you to weigh in. If you follow me on Facebook, let me pull it up. This was a post I put up right after lunch. So I really like candy, and the courthouse is right next door to a grocery store, or right across the street. And I haven't gone into the grocery store once in the past 4 weeks. I've been really good at bringing my lunches and eating my beef sticks and fruit roll-ups. But today I said I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to get candy. And this is what I got. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to make this big. This was my candy. Smarties, Now and Later's, Mike and Ike's, Hot Tamales, Bit-O Honey, and Tootsie Rolls. And so many of you either said that I have the candy preference of a 6-year-old, like my wife has said, or an old man. So you can go to the post and give me your comments. Hey, I like it. Someone just said, did you just purposely buy the cheapest candy you could find? No, I like those candies. Anyway, just a moment that I had to tell you all about, and I appreciate your support, even if you don't like my candies. Also, welcome to all of you watching on the Meetin' the Eatons YouTube channel. We have a family YouTube channel that we post all of my daughter's interviews on, and we have some family videos on there from a few years ago, and I've started to stream this on that channel just kind of as an aside, and I've had several people tell me that you're watching there. So thank you. I appreciate you watching no matter where you're from today. I appreciate you being here. Here's what we're going to talk about tonight. 8 witnesses who took the stand today. Tools, bones, and fingerprints. What did DNA tests show? I mentioned the GPS images. I mentioned Samantha Gowilliam taking the stand. And we will remember JJ, Tylee, Tammy, and Charles. You have to admire Samantha because she is a theater teacher. And tonight was opening night of her spring play with her students. And she's testifying in the murder trial for the woman who allegedly killed her sister and missing the play. So kudos to her, and she'll be back on the stand tomorrow morning. Here are the sketches from today. We had Dr. Angie Christensen. She testified yesterday, and her testimony continued today. She is the forensic anthropologist from the FBI. Really went into detail about the bones and all sorts of stuff. We had this FBI tool expert. He's a forensic tool examiner. His name is Douglas Halpaska, I believe is how they said it. He works out at Quantico. And then here's a bunch of the other witnesses. We had David Sincerbo. He worked for the Idaho State Police, analyzing fire debris and drugs. Interesting job. He's now a softball ref in northern Idaho. He retired from ISP. We also had Riley Nelson. She works for the ISP Forensic Department. And then we had Catherine Dace. She's a biologist with ISP. We had Tara Martinez. She's a forensic scientist with ISP. We had Detective Chuck Considis down in your lower right-hand corner. He's been on the stand before from Rexburg Police. He was back today. And we looked at some GPS images that we had not seen before. I'm sorry, satellite images that we had not seen before. And then I mentioned Samantha Gwillem. She was on the stand at the end of the day. So let's get going. We'll jump right into it. Here is what the wrap-up of what each witness said. Dr. Christensen, she talked a lot yesterday about the bones that were sent to her at the FBI lab in Virginia. And she talked about JJ's remains, but mainly it was Tylee's. And to boil it all down, she said that many bones that she received, there was evidence that they had been hit by sharp impacts, and also some with blunt trauma. And in particular, the focus seemed to be on the hip areas and the pelvic areas of Tylee. And I know so many of you have had questions. Was this symbolic? What was going on? Because Dr. Christensen said that these were not signs of a dismemberment. Because when someone tries to dismember a body, they typically go for joints. That wasn't the case here. And again, I don't want to get too graphic. And then the testimony really focused on the pelvic area, the hip area of Tylee. I don't know what that means. I don't know if there's going to be more that comes on that about why that area was targeted, or if it was the hardest area to destroy. I have no idea. But it is interesting that that has been the point of focus, not only for Dr. Christensen, but the next witness. He was a forensic tool examiner for the FBI. He was basically given the bones, and they said, let us know what type of tools hit these bones. And so he did what is called casting, where he sticks rubber foam or rubber liquid, liquidized rubber in the spots that were damaged. It hardens. He then takes it out and he tries to figure out exactly what caused it. Bottom line, he said he could not be 100% certain on what caused it. So he didn't know for sure, but he did have some pretty smart, educated guesses, more than educated, but his theories. What he said is that there was stabbing actions performed on the bones and chopping actions. And those could have been done with a pickaxe, a machete, a knife, some sort of blade tool. Now, when the defense got up to talk with him about this, and again, these were the areas again with her pelvic and hip bones, they asked, "Did you use the tools seized at Chad Daybell's property?" I believe there were 18 tools, 16 or 18 tools. "Did you use those actual tools and compare those tools to the bones?" And he said he did not, because he was not given the tools, and he was unsure if the tools were sent to the FBI, the actual tools. So that was an interesting point that may have the defense, I think, will try to say, listen, why didn't you use the exact tools at Chad Daybell's property on these bones? At least that's what they seem to be making the point today. So again, he didn't know and doesn't know exactly what tools. He couldn't exactly say, I know 100% certain that this mark on this bone, and there were image after image after image after image of all these bones. I mean, some of these bones were split and they were black all along the split. And he said some of these bones were impacted so much that it went through the hard layer of the bone into the soft layer and then out the other side. And so it was more than a blunt, like a punch, like a blunt trauma. It was a sharp, or as he said, a sharp trauma, or a stabbing or a chopping type action. So clearly there was a lot of damage done to these bones. The other question I've been asked a lot, did this happen when Tylee was alive? We don't know at this point. They have not said. Let's hope she had passed, but we don't know if this happened post-mortem or before she died. So that was what this expert had to say. Now, this expert's testimony was long. It was about, I think, an hour to 2 hours. And I've posted it on the East Idaho News YouTube channel. You can go listen to these testimonies and post your thoughts on there, especially if you're into this sort of stuff, forensics and bones and anthropology. This would be fascinating to you. It did get pretty deep. And I don't want to say hard to follow, but it was very detailed, and presentations on the screen and whatnot. The next witness was up for a fairly short amount of time. His name, David Cincerbo, I think that's how you say it. He worked in the Idaho State Police lab for a long time, and his job was basically to determine what happened with fire debris. So he was given a pint-sized container from the scene of Chad Daybell's house, and inside of the container was flesh, human remains, along with some liquid. It was a small amount, and he tested it, and he confirmed that, yes, there was gasoline in that material. So the fire was gasoline. Gasoline was used in the fire, according to him. Again, his testimony was quite short. The next witness was Riley Nolan. So she works at the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab doing DNA samples. So she was able to collect a molar and a rib from JJ's body. She was also able to get some of Tylee's teeth, at least one of the teeth, and a rib from her. They collected DNA samples from Lori, from JJ's dad, Dennis Trahan. They collected DNA samples from Tylee, JJ, Melanie Gibb at one point. Let's see, I believe there was one other person. I think Chad and Alex. And so what they did is they took these out, the molar and the rib, they tested them, and they said that Tylee, the fact that Tylee, there's a 99.9999% chance that Lori is Tylee's mom. Well, we knew that. But why did they put the witness on the stand? To indeed let the jury know that biologically Tylee is Lori's daughter. And there was 99.9999% chance that JJ is Dennis Trahan's biological son. So that's how they did it. Now remember, JJ is not Lori's biological daughter. JJ is not Lori's biological son. So to compare their DNA would not have done much. One interesting thing that Miss Nolan said from the ISP forensic lab, she noticed, and she mentioned this, and I don't know if this is significant or not, but she did notice when she looked at JJ's teeth that he had plump blood vessels in his tooth, and it was something she had not seen before. So I don't know what that means. Maybe they'll come back around to it, or maybe she just wanted to make the point that he had plump blood vessels in his mouth. That led into the testimony of Catherine Dace. She is a biologist with ISP, and she tested substances found on 18 tools at Chad Daybell's property. Shovels, the pickaxe, a lot of shovels. I'm trying to think of what the other things were that were seized there. There was blood over lots of items. Oh, she tested plastic that was there that had blood and body fluid on it. The shovels had ash and dirt and body material, and she just basically did a real thorough exam on all of these tools. And then if there was items of note, she looked at it under a super duper microscope. That's not what they called it, but she described it. And then she was able to determine that what it was. Some of the stuff was nothing. They weren't able to determine if it was anything. It was like dirt and ground. But there was DNA on one of the shovels that she said she was sure it was Tylee's DNA 604 octillion. How many zeros is that? 27 zeros. That is how sure she was. And you know how they say it's 1 in a million chance? Well, it's 604 octillion chances that is Tylee's DNA on the shovel. I don't know if this is much of a surprise for a lot of people that Tylee's DNA was there. We've known that. It would be a shocker if it wasn't her DNA, obviously. But again, this is proving to the jury that yes, Tylee was the person there. DNA proves it. 604 octillion, 27 zeros. And her testimony led into the next testimony from Tara Martinez, who's another ISP worker. She works in the forensic science department. And her job was to test. She's a latent print specialist. So latent is fingerprints, thumbprints, palm prints. Everybody in the world, unless you're an identical twin, has different prints. And some substances, some surfaces, it's easy to get a latent print than off of others, she explained. Some people are naturally sweaty or oily, so everywhere they go, if I touch this microphone, you might be able to get a print, versus if I touch this table over here, you might not. Dust and dirt inhibits that. So her job was to basically take all of the tape, the duct tape that was found at the scene, and unravel it slowly and look for prints. Anything that could have a latent print. And not only the tape, but the plastic. Remember, JJ was wrapped in white plastic and black plastic. There was a lot of plastic there and a lot of tape. And so she did this, and it took her quite some time. She, basically, the bottom line, she was able to get 2 prints. One was kind of faded. The other was much stronger. Both of them belong to Alex Cox. Both of them came from plastic that JJ was wrapped in, or that was associated with JJ, because the way that the plastic was, she got it after he was wrapped in it. But basically there was a right little finger on the black plastic, and then there was a print from Alex's right palm on the plastic. Again, I don't think this is much of a shocker. We've kind of known that Alex was there and involved. It may have been more of a surprise if Lori had a print on there, or Chad. But based on the testimony and witnesses today, there wasn't any from Lori or Chad. So it would be fascinating if Alex was still alive, don't you think? How all of this would play out. And that was her testimony. Now, there could be more DNA experts coming on the stand. There could be more other experts that testify to other things found. But as far as today, there was no smoking gun as far as Alex or as far as Lori or Chad were concerned. But there is kind of this big development that Alex's palm print and fingerprint was found there on the plastic. Okay, so I'm going through these quick. We got 8 witnesses to fit in. Again, you can, if you want to listen to your heart's content, go to our YouTube. We have the whole thing on there, about 5 hours of testimony today. Then we heard from Chuck Considis. Now remember, this is the Rexburg detective that took the stand the first week. They called him back to talk about satellite images. I may have said GPS earlier. I did. I meant satellite. What happened was Chuck Considis saw a news story after the kids' bodies were found about a satellite company that has these images. And so he contacted this satellite company, and they were able to provide the police with an image of the property, Chad Daybell's yard, on September 9th. Now, this is not the image, but it was similar to this, but much more detailed. And they were able to zoom in. So if you see here, let me get my little pointer, laser pointer. This is the tree where JJ was found. This is the house. This is Chad's house. This is the outbuilding. The fire pit, I believe is, can't really see. Somewhere over here is the fire pit. And so they had the satellite company was able to get an image of Chad Daybell's house on the 9th of September of 2019. Can you imagine that? That's the day that police believe Tylee was buried in the yard. The satellite got the picture at 12:32 p.m. But there's cloud cover over the fire pit area. And they had a satellite image from the week before, and then this image, and then they had one on the 21st, again, around the time that JJ died, also taken at 12:32, and then they got another satellite image in October. And there was part of the ground that looked black, but there was no smoke in the satellite image. There was nothing. But I just can't imagine if that satellite image had caught people in the yard, had caught Alex in the yard, like they were able to zoom in and see it. Could you imagine things we don't even think about? You know, we're walking outside to our car and there's a satellite in the air that might get a photo of us. So Detective Considas talked about that briefly, very briefly. And then we had Samantha Gwillem take the stand. She is Tammy's sister, only sister, family of 5. They lived next door to each other, or really close to each other, 2 blocks away, I believe, for till they moved to Idaho, till Tammy and Chad moved to Idaho. And I want to play some of her testimony. It was short. She was only on the stand today for 13 minutes. And here's some of what Samantha had to say.
And do you recall when Tammy started dating Chad Daybell?
Yeah, I do.
Did you know him from before?
Yes, his family lives in our hometown, and so I went to school with his brothers. He was older than me. He was the same age as my oldest brother, so he was not one that I hung around with, but I knew him.
Did you like Chad when she started dating him?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy.
Did you feel like he treated Tammy well?
Yeah, he did.
And then they ultimately ended up married?
Yeah.
And throughout their marriage, did you maintain contact with Chad and Tammy?
Yes, we were very close.
Was Chad in fact friends with your husband?
Yes.
Prior to Tammy moving to Idaho, how close did she live to you?
We were 2 blocks away from each other.
How often did you see her?
Every day.
Do you know how many kids Tammy and Chad have together?
Yeah, 5.
And you mentioned earlier Tammy's also a grandmother?
Yes.
Did Tammy want to move to Idaho?
At first, no. She doesn't like change, and all of her family was there. So in Springville, so it was not something she wanted to do at first.
Do you know whose idea it was for them to move?
It was Chad's.
Did Tammy work prior to moving to Idaho?
Yes, she did.
What did she do for work?
At the time that they moved, she was the special ed secretary at the high school. And previous to that, she worked at the elementary school as the computer teacher.
Was she good with computers?
Oh, she was amazing with them.
She was the go-to person?
She was the go-to person if any of us had a question about something, that she could answer it, and she would pick up any new software and could figure it out. She was self-taught and was very smart.
And the 2 jobs you mentioned, she worked closely with children?
Yes, she did.
When they first got married, do you know what Chad did for work?
He was working for the Springville City Cemetery for the Parks Department. He was part of the cemetery upkeep crew. They helped prepare all the graves, and they took care of the cemetery, upkeep.
Was he also involved in ever digging graves that you know of?
Yeah, that was part of their job, is that they would dig all the graves that came through for any of the burials at the cemetery. Eventually, he came back and was the sexton at that cemetery, at that Springville. It was at the Evergreen Cemetery in Springville. And then eventually he was a sexton at the Spanish Fork Cemetery.
How did you find out about your sister's passing?
Chad called me the morning that she passed away.
Do you recall what he told you?
He told me that she had been really sick, and that she had been coughing all night, and had gotten up and with a coughing fit around midnight, 1 o'clock, and had gone back to sleep. And he was awakened by her that morning when she rolled out of bed dead.
Did that make any sense to you?
No, because I had just seen her 2 weeks previous to that, and she hadn't been she wasn't that sick at all. She was very healthy.
Did she indicate to you any activities that she was participating in?
Yeah, she was in a clogging class, and she was showing us some of her clogging moves, but she was also preparing to run smaller race in their town. So she was trying to stay fit and healthy.
And how old was she?
She wasn't 50 yet. We were going to get ready to celebrate her 50th birthday.
When she came to visit in October, was that a normal visit?
No, it was out of the blue.
Did anyone come with her?
No, she came by herself, and that was unusual because Tammy didn't like to travel alone.
Did she tell you why she came down to visit?
Chad told her that she needed to come visit her family.
Was she able to see all of the siblings?
No, it was me and my mom and dad.
Did Tammy ever indicate to you that she had suspicion that Chad was having an affair?
No, she never said anything about it. If she did have any inkling, I think he probably brushed it away.
Did you notice any change in Chad?
All right, so that is part of Samantha's testimony. Again, it was short, and we'll hear more tomorrow about what happened. Samantha has said publicly that after she got that call, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right in her bones. It didn't feel right to her. And then she got word through that Chad was married to another woman a few weeks later, and she did her own investigation work. She found out Lori's name and went online and started to pull everything she could about this. And today was the first day she's seen Lori Vallow Daybell face to face. This has been going on 4 years. She's never seen her in person. Same with her husband, Jason. He's up here with her. Lori walked in. She was wearing zebra print type pants, white pants, zebra prints. She's very, very thin. A black top, black sweater, long hair that's graying. And many of you are saying, what was Lori doing during all of this? I know I sound like a broken record. She was writing in her notebook. She was doodling or drawing or writing notes, chatting with her attorneys. When bones of her daughter are being shown on the screen, she wasn't looking at them. And I mean, occasionally she would. She'd look up. So the way that it's set up, there's a big screen in front of her here, and she has a monitor on her desk here, but she doesn't really look. So fascinating testimony today. The prosecution's doing a good job. There was a lot of scientific type testimony today that eyes might gloss over a little, or it might be hard to get lost. But then they bring the human element in with having Samantha there at the end, and to have her back tomorrow. I think it helps to bring in these human elements, like the Summer phone call the other day, Colby the other day, people that knew them, and mix them in with the detectives so that you're kind of painting this picture and putting together the puzzle so that the jurors can see it. What were the jurors doing today? The jurors have all seemed very attentive to me. I did catch one of them nodding off yesterday, briefly. But the jurors seem to have been full-on engaged and paying attention to all of it. Tonight, I want to remember Tammy, but my screen just went to black, so there we go. You see that picture? That is Tammy with her ducks. From what I'm told, she loved ducks, loved all animals. She had animals everywhere they went. She had them in Springville and Rexburg. She also loved rabbits and ducks, and that's why they had a pet cemetery in the back. Her daughter actually had a dog that died. Samantha said on the stand today, and so they put a little dog statue in the backyard and buried the dog. And on Tammy's grave in Utah, there's little ducks. And she loved all creatures and loved being a mom and a grandma. And it's interesting this time of year in Boise, there are ducks everywhere, it seems, or geese. I've seen these birds everywhere. So we remember Tammy, and it's nice to have her sister here. And interestingly enough, her birthday is on May 4th, and that's when Chad has a hearing next week. And Chad will appear via Zoom from the jail in Fremont County. His attorney is here in Boise, and we might have a trial date set for him at that hearing. All right, let me get to your questions. We've got a lot here. Here we go. Please keep posting them. Jeff says, I'm a law student. Do you think the prosecution's approach has been impactful so far? How is the attorney who is doing the case for the state in style? In other words, do they seem overmatched? No, I don't know if you mean overmatched by the defense or if you mean overmatched by the attorney who came in from another state, Rachel Smith, to help them. I think the prosecution has seemed very prepared. All 5 of them. You've got Rob Wood, Rachel Smith, Lindsay Blake. Those are the 3 main ones. And then you've got Spencer Rammel and Tanya Rawlings. They're the deputies. They've all taken a turn. They all have their own style of questioning. And I think it's been fine. I mean, I don't think there's been any moments where people have looked at each other and been like, oh, did you see that? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So yeah, I think that the prosecution's approach has been impactful, the way that they've built this case. Andy, can you please explain why the photos weren't shown for everyone on the big screen? So this was a decision made by Judge Boyce yesterday with the autopsy photos. The defense objected and said that the photos were too prejudicial, that basically they were too damaging for everyone to see, and that it would basically become a sensationalized thing to have the photos up there. So the jury saw them, and all of the parties involved saw them, but not the audience. Now, we have seen autopsy photos before. We saw one of JJ, we've seen a bunch of Tylee, and we've seen one of Tammy. These were, I think, just a little bit more detailed. And so I think it was done as a way to weigh the objection from the defense, but plus also satisfy the prosecution and not kicking the photos out completely, which the defense wanted. And again, I said last night, when this case is all over, this all becomes public record. People can go down and see the autopsy photos at the courthouse. Jen asks, is it true that Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, now owns Chad's house and property? It is true. It is true. John Pryor has the house. I imagine that's how he's getting paid. He doesn't live at the house. Chad's kids still live at the house, but they're probably paying him rent. Amber says, I keep hearing and seeing people saying that Judge Boyce is siding with Lori in her defense. I hope he's just by the book and it's concerning. What's your take? I don't know if I've seen him siding with the defense. There's been several objections the defense has raised that he's overruled. There's been several objections the prosecution's raised that he's overruled. I don't see him, playing favorites thus far. I mean, if he really was in the tank for the defense, he wouldn't have allowed those photos in yesterday. But I think he's been fair from my observation, like other judges that I've witnessed. What was Lori's reaction to the news today regarding Alex's fingerprint and palm print on the plastic? As I said, she really didn't have one. I wish that there were big moments of, oh no, or whatever, but we don't see that much with Lori. Becky says, I want to know more about the small trace of blood on Lori's wall in her apartment. Good question. They talked about some tests that were done at Lori's apartment in Rexburg, and there was 2 blood areas that may have had blood. One, I don't remember where the first one was, but ended up being nothing. The second one was a faint piece of blood like on the wall, and it was something, but I don't think it was conclusive. It was blood. So if you go back and read my notes, what I wrote about that, there's more, and that's all I know. That's all I know. Do you have to be an Idaho resident to look at public records after the trial? No, anybody can go down to the courthouse, again, when all the trial's over, and say, I'd like to see the case file for case file CR2019, whatever the number is. I should have it memorized. I don't. And they'll say it's fine. In fact, it's mainly on computer, but you have to be in a courthouse to pull up all of the documents on the computer. If you plan to do it, you might want to plan on a few weeks because there's a lot of evidence. If Lori's found not guilty of first-degree murder, can they charge her differently and go back to trial, or will she walk? You cannot charge the same crime twice. Now, if she's found not guilty for first-degree murder, but she's found guilty on the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, the sentence could be the same. You can face up to life in prison on both charges. So if they don't get her on murder and they get her on conspiracy, the sentence could be the same. But no, as far as this criminal case is concerned, if she is found not guilty, they cannot come back and try her again by just altering the charge to like manslaughter or something. That wouldn't work. Joan asked, was an Amber Alert ever issued in this case? No. I think by the time the police were involved, it was so late, and there's certain criteria for Amber Alerts, and there just wasn't one issued. Is Melanie P. Pulowski now B. Boudreaux? You mean the other way. Is Melanie Pulowski, formerly Melanie B. Boudreaux, ever going to show up? Stay tuned. It might be coming. That's Lori's niece. She has not been a witness, but we still have some time. What was Lori's reaction to the news today? I read that one. Michelle, is it possible if Chad's prints are present, they're going to keep it quiet until his trial? I don't know. I would imagine the way that the questions are asked, I would think the witness would have to reveal it, because the questions are asked, did you find any DNA evidence at the scene? Yes, I did. Whose DNA evidence did you find at the scene? The witness is not going to hold back and say, well, Alex Cox's, and I'll tell you the other one at the trial next year. I think they'd announce it. Now, it's possible that they maybe didn't test some items for this case and are holding on for it for Chad's, but I don't foresee that. I mean, they were preparing to have these cases joined up until like 2 months ago, maybe even sooner than that. So I don't know if they diverted much from their original plan. I'm sure there will be differences for sure, but like witnesses and whatnot, but I don't think that they would hold it back. I just read that they found tramadol and fluoxetine in Tammy's body. That is quite powerful drugs. Wonder if she was prescribed them or was given them by someone else. I don't know. I believe the other day when they talked about this, she was on an antidepressant, and those drugs do sound familiar. Isn't one to help with anxiety? That might be it. Jill, I wonder if the backseat of the Jeep was removed to put a body or to hide and shoot at Brandon. Has this come out yet? Yes, Jill, they talked about that the other day. This week, I think yesterday maybe, and they talked about the tire being wheeled in. I showed the video last night or a few nights ago, and the seat. I don't know if it was to put a body, perhaps, maybe, or to hide and shoot. We just don't know. What we do know is that Brandon saw the gun, the barrel of the gun with the silencer when he was shot at. He testified to that. Okay, there are so many more questions. I wish I could get to them all, but I gotta go because my wife's here. She's here. She's going to be at court with me tomorrow. It's a short court day tomorrow. Again, 8:30 to 1:30. And we'll do a Courtroom Insider tomorrow night. I hope you'll join us with Erica. I'll have a co-host. You won't have to hear from me so much. Maybe I'll get some better candy for her. She doesn't eat a lot of candy. But I'll eat the Smarties and the now and laters. Again, thank you all for watching. Here's where you can find me. There's my reporter page, the East Idaho News YouTube page, where all of the audio is found each and every day. And the Instagram page, if you want to follow me on Insta, there's my handle, and my Twitter page, Nate News Now. Again, if you want to, too, you can follow the Meat and the Eatons YouTube channel. But that's a lot of Eatons, so who knows? All right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. More Courtroom Insider. Take care.